Just another brother with another humble question. Just another brother with another humble question.
Welcome to Questions. I am your host, B. Period, and I appreciate y'all for joining me. It's been a rough week, man. A lot of things going on. But before we jump in today, let me ask you, please like and subscribe to the channel. Just click that little like button, man, and then hit the subscribe button right after. And then don't forget to go in there and comment. Tell me what you're thinking. But let's dive right in, man. You see the image. Everybody's talking about it. Fani Willis had her, I guess you say, her testimony that happened at the end of last week, and a lot of things happened in that. I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of clips, man. I'm sure if you've been paying attention, you've seen a bunch of it. I'm just going to show you this one particular clips, and then I'm going to share my comments. So let's check this particular clip.
2019 and 2021.
So you want to start with the lie that he lived with me in South Fulton in 2019, a home he's never been to? That's one lie you told in your document.
Judge, I didn't ask her about that.
Ms. Merchant, I want you to ask a very precise question. I think she's saying and answering that he did not live with her. So why don't we break that up into smaller parts?
And I didn't ask about living.
But you put in your, while we're talking about professionalism, she put in 3 different documents he lived with me.
Full opportunity to respond.
And filed that with the court.
In 2019.
He's never been to South Fulton. In 2019, I lived in South Fulton. He has never been to my residence in 2019, ever, not once.
In 2019, he's never been to your residence, any place.
I lived in my home in South Fulton before I started getting the threats that were here, a house I paid for with my own sweat and tears. I'm no longer able to live there. But in 2019, I did. And in the 2 months of 2019 that I knew Mr. Wade, 3 months, the beginning of October, all of November, and all of December, Mr. Wade never came to my house in South Fulton. Let me help you out. I lived there in 2020. He never came to my house in 2020, let alone live with me, as you put falsely in these documents. In the first 3 months of 2021, when I could still enjoy my home, Mr. Wade never came to South Fulton, and it is certainly a lie that he lived with me.
So in 2020, so you said 2019, 2020. Did Mr. Wade ever visit you at a place that you resided?
He has never been to my home in South Fulton. 2020 was before I knew that a phone call was going to be made and I was going to have to abandon my home. As a result thereof, he never visited, lived at, came to, or has seen South Fulton.
You qualified that with your home in South Fulton.
That's where I lived in 2020.
2020, did he ever visit you at a place that you resided?
Okay. I don't understand. You must give me that. In 2020, I lived.
So I think a lot of comments. Some people were talking about in the circumstances. So they were looking at the fact that when you go to her testimony and how she was talking about, G, how she was giving somebody a G, and other ways that she was, at least what some would describe as being not professional in the way that she was addressing some of the matters. Clearly, in this particular instance, where she was talking about the counter arguing, Miss Merchant put out a whole thing that she talked about in the clip, where she was talking about Miss Merchant's belief about what the relationship was, and clearly she disagrees, and Mr. Wade also disagrees with what Ms. Merchant submitted as well. about how he did not stay with her, and they were not living together, and so forth. And so it's just been a lot of back and forth. I just wanted to share my thoughts. So when I watched the interview, and I watched a good portion of it, and the one thing that comes across is, first of all, she clearly has way more words with Miss Merchant than she's allowed to say on that stage. As she said when she first got to the stand, and they were asking about whether or not her and Mr. Wade had any conversations about it. And she said they did. And the fact that she said, or briefly, and she described it, the fact that she said she had a whole lot more choice words to say lets me know that Miss Merchant was a whole bunch of stuff. But good attorney was probably not ever uttered as part of that speech. So that's number one. Number two, a lot of people are talking about the fact that she seemed real shady in her interview, in her testimony, and I don't know, I didn't see the shady. I saw someone who is definitely being very dismissive, especially to Ms. Merchant, being very dismissive to, like I said, the attorney Merchant there. So I definitely see that. And you can tell in her responses, and even in that clip that I played, you could tell that she was hot. She was hot. She really had a whole lot that she wanted to say, but understood the assignment, and that she was not allowed to be able to say all the things that she wanted to say. And so you could clearly see she was doing her best to try and be as professional as possible under the circumstance. But in reality, she had a whole lot of four-letter words, I believe, that she could have used in the circumstance. And then the third thing that I saw from this, and I don't really hear people talking about this. Some people are saying that she hates men, but I don't think it's that. I don't believe necessarily she hates men, but clearly, her and Mr. Wade, she was ready for that to be over. she was ready for that. And so a lot of, I think what you're seeing is, R. Kelly made a song called When a Woman's Fed Up. And so I think a lot of what you're seeing a fed up woman. So she was already fed up with a relationship and had decided and moved on from it. And now here comes someone from the outside trying to take this relationship, which she clearly, by the end of it, was done, and I would say even disgusted by her. Now somebody's trying to come, and not only are they trying to bring her back into a relationship, they're trying to put way more sauce on the relationship than she ever put on that thing. And now she's having to defend all of these things about this relationship that it feels like, to me, she ultimately regretted by the end of it, because it didn't quite go exactly how she thought it would go, based on the fact that that Mr. Wade, as she describes him anyway, definitely described him as a gentleman, right? We heard her say that, but also describes him as someone who doesn't sound like he wants a woman in his life, if you will, at least based on the way that she described Mr. Wade. And so the one thing I will say, if you go back and compare his testimony to her, I could tell he obviously too was a little disgusted by the whole idea of what they're trying to assert here, but he was certainly able to hold it together a lot better and not be as emotional. But for Miss Willis here, you can clearly see that she is definitely feeling like, ever since this case started, she's been under attack. And now here she goes again. And now every little thing that she's been doing, which she would probably describe as that she's been following the book. But now we got this new attorney, Miss Merchant here, who is attacking every little thing about her life. And then, as she asserted in that video, that she is lying on her. And so because of that, she's in defense mode right now. And so that whole testimony, she was in defense mode and doing everything she could to not bite that lady head off. And so I'm not going to say, whether or not you want to believe that she was doing improper things and this relationship was improper. From what I can tell, just listening to their testimony, and you say they're lying. I know a lot of people think they're lying. I don't see why you got to lie about a relationship. Because even if you were, according to them, the relationship started after the fact. So how does this relationship really impact the case, if you will, right? That's the question I'm having when I hear these arguments. I'm like, how does this impact? So if they had a relationship and didn't have a relationship, right? She was clearly, it was in her campaign speech that she was going after Donald Trump. So whether she got Mr. Wade or whether she got Bobby Smurder off the street, she was going after him, and somebody was going to prosecute this case. And so, this testimony to me only speaks to the fact, it doesn't necessarily speak to her unprofessionalism. I know that's what a lot of people say. You could definitely argue she was unprofessional, but it just speaks to the level of anger that she's really had, not only towards, Mr. Wade for the way that the relationship is, but also now towards Miss Merchant, and it's just boiling over, right? On top of the fact that, according to her, she's being threatened, her life is being threatened. She's paying for a house apparently that she can't live in. So, it's just all these things are piling and piling and piling. And now she's just at a point where she's like, listen, if one more person come up with me just because I'm trying to send these people to jail for doing something illegal, that's a story. You know what I mean? And it's just like, she just at that boiling point. And so I understand her frustration. I get that. That makes totally sense to me. So, I don't, could she have been more professional? Of course. You know what I'm saying? The fact that, maybe she keeps all this cash in her house. Lord knows the last thing she needs to do is tell the world that. But, but to say that she's definitely lying and, this is all a plot. We all know it's a plot to get Donald Trump. That's the obvious part. That's obvious. They're trying to get Donald Trump. They're trying to get him in Georgia. They're trying to get him in New York, right? So that part is obvious. But what this particular relationship that they had and the money that they were spending, on these trips. I mean, come on, man. We're talking about two people who make $700,000 a year. So they spent a couple thousand, $10,000 on some trip. Like, if that is the equivalent of a favor for, whatever you think this is, I think they could have done a lot better. Because we're talking about people who make, on average, if you make $100,000 a year before taxes, you're clearing $7,000 a month. I mean, after taxes, I should say. You're clearing probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $7,000 a month. So to spend $2,000, unless you just got some crazy kind of bills, to spend a couple $1,000s here and there over a few different months, we ain't talking about a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? So I just, come on, man, we got to do better. But Fani Willis, to me, did she come across unprofessional? Sure. Was she clearly upset and wanted the mess out of the attorney Merchant? Yep, she sure did. But do I think that this relationship is the reason why he's getting prosecuted? Nah, she was doing this anyway, and he was just the one. But if it wasn't him, it was going to be somebody else. And so we can all argue the merits of maybe this case doesn't make sense to you, and that's fine. Whether or not the case makes sense, I don't know. I don't know if the case makes sense. I'm just curious to see what the outcome is. But whether or not it makes sense, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I'm not here to argue the merits of it. I didn't read all the legal briefs. I look at all these things that are happening to Trump right now as part of the plan to take him down. And so this is just another part of the plan. My bigger picture on this for me is the fact that regardless of what she's doing and her relationship, I don't think any of that matters. To me, what I just keep seeing is I keep seeing a party who is doing everything in their power to take down the opposition without even realizing how much they're building and building and building the opposition up to a point that it's ultimately, in my opinion, going to be to their detriment. And so they can keep on with this, and they can keep on with all the things that's happened in New York as well. But in my opinion, they're only making his base want him more. And so if their goal is to stop him in November, they're failing miserably. And on this thing, come on. If this is all they got, a bunch of trips, which these people have admitted to,